I'm heading south. I'm heading south to find emotions of my own.
Hey, I'm John Malik. In happier times, I'm the chef de cuisine of the loft at Sourdough. Starting a new feature, will be the IonGreenville Quarantine Kitchen. The first episode of the Quarantine Kitchen, I'm going to walk you through sourdough bread. And what I like to do if I'm making a new starter is I'm going to make it from the leaves of a plant. And this is a peach tree that the leaves are relatively young. All we're going to do is take these guys and throw them in the flour. I've got nothing in here but flour, right? And I'm going to stir them around, and I'm going to leave it like that for a few hours. And all you're doing is extracting the yeast off of the plant. A couple hours later, maybe, so what I'll do is shake it around. Now, after a little bit of time, you're going to pull the leaves out, remove them, add a little bit of tap water, right? It does not have to be bottled water unless your water is heavily chlorinated. So I'm just going to put a little tap water in there, stir it around, and leave it alone. And I'm going to cover it with a clean cloth. Put this in the refrigerator, nothing's going to happen. You're not going to do anything with this for 48 hours. You're going to leave it sitting out on the kitchen counter. On the third day, you're going to take it, you're going to add a little bit more flour and a little bit more water. Now you're going to have to do this several times before your starter is strong enough to proof a loaf of bread. So some people, when they do this, they will remove half of the starter, throw it away, right? Because at the end of this is going to take a 7 to 10 day process to start one of these from scratch. So if you don't do that, you're going to end up with maybe a gallon of starter. You don't have to do that. You don't have to remove any. You might want to end up with a gallon of starter. But if you don't, you just scoop out a little bit, maybe a third or whatever. It doesn't have to be that much. And then we're going to add in a little bit more flour and a little bit more water. Right? And we're going to leave it on the kitchen counter. Right? Come back to this tomorrow. We're going to do the same thing. Add a little bit more flour, a little bit more water. It doesn't have to be a whole lot. Like quarter cup is fine. Quarter cup of flour, quarter cup of water. Now by day anywhere between 7 and 10, you're going to end up with something like this. And that smell is going to be reminiscent of a champagne or sparkling wine. When it's freshly poured, it's kind of yeasty. Or a great farmhouse ale from your favorite local brewery. Okay. Now, after about 10 days, now we're ready to make our first loaf of sourdough. So on that day, when you're ready, what you want to do is feed that sourdough starter. You're going to give it a cup of fresh flour and a cup of fresh tap water, warm water, body temperature water, right? Two things that'll kill the yeast or kill your starter is too much salt or too much heat. This is my basic country style bread recipe. All we need is 3 cups of bread flour and 1 cup of whole wheat flour. If you don't have bread flour, that's fine. You can use all-purpose flour. The difference is protein levels. About a cup, but it's going to be really hard to measure. I don't bother measuring it. I just put in a big handful. And then we're going to add our water. Alright, that's what we're looking for. You see the way the dough is pulling away from the sides of the bowl? It's not sticking. And it's got a nice uniform appearance. No big lumps. And see, when I press my thumbs onto it, it doesn't stick. So now all we need to do is let this proof. I'm going to put this into a bowl leave it in the mixing bowl, put it in another bowl, whatever, doesn't matter. You cover it with a cloth or a stretch of plastic wrap, and then leave it alone. Let it sit out on the counter. It has to proof. Okay, so this one went overnight, and I just left it in this bowl, just like this. And now I've got a pastry scraper. I'm going to use to scrape the dough out. Or, if you don't have one of those, you can use a spatula or whatever. You get the idea, right? So, I've got my clean counter right here. And I'm going to do a little sprinkle of flour and a quick knead. So remember, bread, great bread is all about texture. And we create that texture by manipulating the protein. Okay. Put a little bit of flour on my hands, right? And I'm going to roll the bread into itself over and over like that. Now we're going to do a secondary fermentation, a secondary proof, and we're going to proof it in the baking vessel. So we could do it just like this. Put it on. You can put it on a sheet pan like that. Spray it down, right, first. Or we could use something like this. I've got a heavy-duty cast iron skillet, right? I prefer this guy. This is the vessel from our slow cooker. Like so. Drop that guy in there. And then once again, I'm going to cover it with a towel or whatever. And we're going to let it sit at room temperature until it doubles, and it won't be very long, probably about a couple of hours, 1 or 2 hours. Alright, so I had it in the oven on the proof feature. So if your oven has something like that, then I recommend doing that second time around. Typically, so we're going to put it into the oven, 425 degrees. I'm going to put the lid on it, right? 425 for about 30-35 minutes. Then I'm going to check it. I want it to be about 135, 140. And then we'll take the lid off, put it back in the oven. So after 30 minutes in the oven, I took the lid off, put the bread back in the oven, turned it down to 375 for about another 15 minutes. And I'm going to temp it to 195 degrees. And there's our bread. And there's our scorching hot loaf of bread, 198 degrees right from the oven. And it's got a wonderful crackly crust and all these little bumps.
I'm heading south. I'm heading south to find emotions of my own. I'm heading south. I'm heading south. I'm heading south back to the place that I was born.
Olive oil, we're good to go.
I'm heading west. I'm heading west. I'm heading west to find the endings of my own. I'm heading west.